Friends, we're going to learn out a very important concept from the parashiot that we're looking at, specifically this particular parasha. And this concept is going to help us, Be'ezrat Hashem. It's a statement of Chazal, of the rabbis, and we're going to discover it very neatly placed inside our parasha. So we know, first of all, that Yaakov is settled, Vayeshev Yaakov, everything is calm, he's living in Israel. Just when you think it's all calm and fantastic, comes along the whole situation of Yosef. And we said that Yosef was a young boy, just 17 years old, and his brothers are highly suspicious of him. They feel there's something wrong with this young man, and they want to get ahead of the curve, and so they decide to, first of all, kill him, and then to sell him down to Mitzrayim, down to Egypt. Of course, this is going to lay the land, we're going to see very clearly from the parasha, for the future exile of the Jewish people in Egypt. Very, very important concept. And so they decide the best way to get rid of him is to kind of like throw the dice, see how they land, and see where he ends up. So we're not going to kill him directly. That wouldn't be right to do to our brother. We're going to put him in a very precarious situation, throw him into a pit, and based upon that, we'll see what Hashem decides whether to save him or to not save him. There is actually an unusual prediction that Rashi tells us is hidden away in the parasha. And this prediction is the future exile of the Jewish people in Mitzrayim. And it comes in the form of a coat. A coat which Yaakov gave to Yosef. And the coat, of course, is the Kotonet Pasim. Kotonet Pasim. This is a coat that was gifted by Yaakov Avinu to Yosef. This beautiful, I know that there's a very famous play, the multicolored coat of Yosef. The parasha does not tell us it was multicolored. It calls it a Kotonet Pasim, a striped coat. Rashi comes along and he helps us figure out what this coat, this gift of Yaakov given to Yosef was all about. So it says he gave him this Ketonet Pasim, the Yisrael Ahaved Yosef, Yisrael, which is the new name, the additional name for Yaakov. He loved Yosef. Mikol Banav, from all his kids, Ki Ben Skonim Hu, because he had him at an older age. There was a similar love between him and his son, a unique one. Vasalo Ketonet Pasim. What is Pasim? Rashi gives us two interpretations. Now remember, a very important klal of Rashi, which every yeshiva boy learns. When Rashi gives us one interpretation, that's good. He's giving us pshat. Pshat means the basic translation and information of the pasuk. If he gives you a second interpretation, it could well be he's not so happy with the first one and he wants to give you an alternative interpretation of the first of the pasuk, because number one is not so good. Here, he not only gives us a second interpretation, he changes the whole style of interpretations. The first one is one of language. What is pasim? Rashi tells us, pshat, lashon, klei, milat. It is a fine wool. Fine wool. That's pasim. It's milat. That's very interesting. He's given him a nice cashmere coat, which even in today's standards would be quite pricey, right? A beautiful, and that is pshat. And he brings down proofs from various places in the Torah that pasim, even we see Achashverosh in the Megillah, there was pasim. He used this fine wool to decorate his beautiful palace in Paras during the Purim story. And he mentioned another couple of places. We know that pasim refers to fine wool. Says Rashi, but let me tell you something else about the word pasim. And this is a very puzzling Rashi. Pasim is made up of 4 letters. Pei, Samach, Yud, Mem. And Rashi is going to steer us away from Pshat and give us some Agadata, some deeper drush. And he says, I'll tell you what these 4 letters stand for. Pei stands for Potiphar, he says. Potiphar. Who's Potiphar? He is the main butcher and meat producer in Egypt that Yosef is going to end up working for and using as a way to lift himself up in Egyptian society. That's the pay. What's the samach? Uluschorim, business people. Business people. Yishmaelim are the Arabs of the day, Ulamidyanim. So he names 4 different groups. Who are these groups? Who are these people? These are the 4 groups that are going to handle Yosef, handle him until he gets down into Mitzrayim. He's going to be changing hands 4 times. They're going to sell him from one to the next, to the next, to the next. That's Pasim. Really? So, are you telling me that Yaakov was aware that his son Yosef was going to be sold? It can't be, because he mourned his death for many, many years. Could it be that Yosef, at the tender age of 17, was aware it was going to happen to him, being sold by these 4 people and end up with Potiphar? It also can't be, because he would have run. So what is going on over here? Rashi is telling us, this Ketana Pasim is the gift that was given, and inside the word Pasim are actually the traveling and the end destination of Yosef ending up in Mitzrayim in Egypt. So there's a lot going on over here. First of all, Pasim has a gematria, has a numerical value. And unless I'm mistaken, and you can calculate it yourself, Pei, Samach, Yud, Mem comes to, anyone want to total it up in their heads? 190. Does that number 190? It's very good, by the way. You did well in class, I see. 190. The MPA doesn't help. The 190, it should be reminiscent of something. What's 190? We were in Egypt for 190 years. How long were we meant to be in Mitzrayim? In Egypt? 400. 400. Instead, Hashem shortened the exile for a few reasons, from 400 down to 190. Oh, sorry, he took off 190. Mechila, you're absolutely right. He took off 190, it ends up being 210. 190 was the reduction. Why? Why was 190 knocked off the full amount of 400? Because it was so bad in Mitzrayim. It was such a difficult exile that we were going through, that the Haggadah even tells us that had we not left at that exact moment, we would never have got out. And it was so challenging. They made our lives so bitter, right? The mar, the bitterness of Mitzrayim was so bad, Hashem said, you know what? I'm going to do you a favor. I know I told Avraham Avinu, you're going to be in Mitzrayim for 400 years. I'm going to knock off 190. You're going to end there for 210. That is going to be the way you get out early. By the way, this idea of shortening the exile, expediting us, easy passing us out, we know applies to the present exile as well. Because the prophet Yeshayahu, Isaiah the prophet, chapter 60 tells us, Be'ito achishena. He tells us that there is a maximum amount of time that we can be in this final galut. That's the Be'ito, which most commentators say is 6,000 years of world history that we could be in this final galut. By the 6,000th, we're out. But there's also another word called achishena, that if we are worthy of it, Hashem is going to expedite our exit from this galut, from this exile, and we are going to be taken out early. So the idea of Hashem taking us out early has historical proof, and Be'ezrat Hashem, and it's going to happen because we're not going to last, right? Things cannot go on the way they are because they're completely insane. Hashem, Be'ezrat Hashem, is going to bring us a Geula B'karov earlier than hopefully anyone even anticipated. That's the Achishena version of Isaiah the prophet. Okay, we're still left with a very, very big question. And that is, Yaakov wasn't aware of what was going to happen to his son. He didn't realize the coach was giving him Pasim, right? Stood for those 4 groups of people who are going to handle Yosef till he ends up in Eretz Yisrael as Potiphar. From here we learn a very important concept which applies very much today. And I wanted to keep this in mind when you watch the news and you see the internet and all the things that are happening to our brothers and sisters in Israel and actually throughout the entire world. And it goes like this. Hashem, says Chazal, is makdim the refuah to the makkah. Hashem gives us the healing before the hit. He's makdim the refuah the makkah. Before Hashem gives us a smack, before He gives us a challenge, especially one of other nations killing us and attacking us, He does something very uniquely just for Am Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, and that is, and not only in Israel, as I'm going to prove to you in a moment, because we're going to learn this concept out from another story in Jewish history. And that is, before Hashem gives us a klap, a knetch, a zetz, a hit, He gives the ability for us to heal from this terrible challenge even before the hit comes. That's the way Hashem operates when it comes to the Jewish people. Let's have a look at one example of this in Jewish history, and then we'll see it over here. The very famous example we learn this out from is Megillat Esther. Megillat Esther, which by the way is a microcosm of the entire redemption of Mashiach, the entire Geula of Mashiach, is actually a carbon copy, a microcosm of the final redemption. That's why the Rambam tells us that all the books of Nach are going to disappear once Mashiach comes. We won't need them anymore because they're only predicting Mashiach's arrival. Once he comes, we don't need them anymore. Except, says the Rambam, Megillat Esther. Megillat Esther has got information not only about the arrival of Mashiach, but even post-Mashiach's arrival. There's something very messianic in that story. But we'll leave that for a side. In the story itself, we know that the Jewish people were threatened by Haman, Ha'agagi, the Amalekite. And we also know that before Haman comes to get us, various things take place before he even comes to hate us and take on power for himself. One of the biggest things is that Esther, Hamalka, was secreted and married to Achashverosh. So before Haman can get his dastardly plan against us, Esther is hidden away in the palace. Now, nobody knew she was Jewish, according to many opinions. They didn't realize that. And yet they were still being saved by her presence in Achashverosh's palace, married to Achashverosh, this complete Meshugana of his day, so that when Haman does take on tremendous power and kavod to seal the defeat of the entire Jewish people, boop, out comes Esther, who's been hiding away for many, many years in the palace of Achashverosh, and she can come and help us survive this ordeal. Here we have the perfect example of Makdim, the Refuah. Hashem brings the Refuah before the Makkah. Interesting. If you look, I believe, there's something called Ta'amim. We have the Ta'amim. On top of the letters in the Chumash, we see the various notes that the Bal Koreh, when he reads the Torah, sings. You don't see those notes, but every Bar Mitzvah boy who went through a year or so of learning, right, the Ta'amim, right, the Mapach, and the Revi'i, and all these various notes, knows there's one which are two crescents that appear like this. They are called Kadma Va'azla. Kadma Va'azla. And it goes up, right? It's very, very uplifting song, right? Kadma Va'azla. It goes up. Two crescents that face each other, called Kadma Va'azla. The Vilna Gaon says something fascinating. He sees inside the words, he's able to decipher. He's able to decipher in the ta'amim, in these little notes that you don't see, but you sing and you have to learn. Inside them is a reference. If you look, I believe, in Parashat Shemot, it talks about, remember, they embittered our lives. And over there you see the Kadma Va'azla. The word Kadma Va'azla actually means Kodem, before Azla. You're going to go out. You're going to go out early. Why? Because things were made mar. They were so bitter for us in Mitzrayim that Hashem says, no problem. God Ma'avi Azla, I'm going to take you out early. Because it's so difficult, Hashem is able to turn the bi'ito in its time to achishena, to bring you out early. So Hashem brings the refuah, the healing, before the makkah. How does this concept play in over here? Well, there's a few things. We are going to reference Yosef in Haggadah with the karpas. What is karpas? What is it? How do you know it's celery? How do you know karpas is celery? Well, if you're Persian, which you're not, karpas is actually a Persian word. Anyone here Persian? Yeah, what's karpas? Karafs. Oh, what's karafs? It's celery. Absolutely right. You can use various. My wife's family, Ashkenazic, they use potatoes because that's all they had in Europe. But really, it should be celery. Any root vegetable, I believe, suffices for karpas, karafs, same lashon. Why? Because Yosef was, I believe, this is my pshat, but I heard it once before. Yosef was hidden away inside Mitzrayim, in Egypt, before the Jewish people went down. And he made various laws and enactments. One of the most important things that Yosef did before his brothers came down was that he set up a certain priestly class. A priestly class. There are certain people who are involved in Avot Kodesh, or Lahavdil in the Egyptian version, who don't work. So that when the Jewish people came down and they had among them Leviim, they would not need to work. They were free from doing Avodah. So there he is. He's Mr. Celery, Karafs, who's buried deep inside Mitzrayim. So Hashem says, I know you're going to end up in Galut. I know the Jewish people have to go there and spend 210 years. I'll take off 190 because it's so difficult, such bitterness you're going to go through. Kadmavi Azla, I'm going to take you out. Kodem Vazla, I helped you out. But you know what? I'm going to make it even better for you. I'm going to put the refuah, Magna refuah, to the Makkah. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to have Yosef go down and set up a place for you to live and set up for you laws that are going to benefit you when you get down there. And that is why Shevet Levi did not have to work when they were in Mitzrayim. How come Moshe Rabbeinu was able to go, Yosef Nechnas, right, and Aaron HaKohen were able to go in and out and see Paro while they were there in Mitzrayim? How come they're allowed to do that? Why were they not involved in the Avodat Perech, in the hard work that was in Mitzrayim? Because Yosef established for the Jewish people a concept that there's going to be, always going to be, right through history, one class of people who are not involved in physical labor, and that is Shevet Levi, a priestly class. And they are going to be supported by their brothers and sisters to stay in Avodah Kodesh forever. And that is why Shevet Levi doesn't get a portion in the land of Israel. They're too busy. Later on, when we take possession of the land of Israel, they're too busy. Okay, they have to be given land to live in. And they were given various cities and various places to live, but they didn't own those pieces of land. They did not own them. They are able to graze their flocks and their food on them, but that's not how they're going to subsist. They are going to subsist on the matanot. That all goes back to Yosef. So when Yaakov Avinu gives Yosef this jacket, this ketonet pasim, he had no idea of the symbolism in the coat. And when Yosef received this coat, he also had no idea of the symbolism. So what's Rashi telling us? Pasim are 4 letters, right? Potiphar, Yishmaelim, and Schorim, and Midyanim, or Ma'danim as they're also called. What is the significance of that? It's not for them, it's for us. We need to know, after the story, retroactively Lemafreya, that when Yaakov gave this jacket, which is going to lead to the jealousy and the hatred of his brothers, and they're throwing him into the pit, and they decide not to kill him, and they take him out of the pit, and they sell him down to Mitzrayim, and he ends it with Potiphar, and he ends up setting up these places for the Leviim and all of Jewish people to live in Goshen, and he sets up a whole financial base and a learning base. All of that is not for them to know. They're going to have to live it. It's for us. We have to realize that Hashem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is involved in the entire scheme from before we're even aware of what was going to happen. Which means, my dear friends, that we are watching a war taking place right now. And we're thinking, this came out of nowhere. For us, it did. But not for Hashem. Because for some reason, which we're not sure of yet, because we're still in the midst of the battle, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, already, without us even knowing, this is for sure, because it happened in the days of Esther Malka, it's happening over here in the parasha. This always is the way Hashem fights the wars for Am Yisrael and Klal Yisrael and Bnei Yisrael. That means right now, without us even knowing, and it will become revealed at the right time, because it always does. Right now, my dear friends, there is a refuah, a healing, that is taking place, that has been taking place from way before October 7th, which is going to end up becoming our salvation. We may not be able to see it now. We may not be able to see the reason why this war is happening now. But Hashem does. Because Hashem is Yud with a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. Those 4 letters, we don't even say this so Kadosh, represent the miraculous nature of Hashem that was used in Mitzrayim officially in the first time. And those 4 letters are actually 3 words that are crunched into one. Hashem is Haya, God is the past. Hashem is Hoveh, He is the present. And Hashem is Yiyeh, He will be. Hashem is above time and space. When you take those 3 words, Haya, Hoveh, Yiyeh, and you crunch them, you get the miraculous name of Hashem that Moshe Rabbeinu used to create the miracles, the Makot, and create Yam Sov. And all the miracles happened to the Jewish people in and after Egypt. And so, my friends, right now we have to realize that Hashem was involved in helping us win this battle way before the battle even began. Hashem is magdim the refuah to the makkah. What we need to do is have faith in Hashem's name, in the Yud with the Hey, the Vav, the Hey. When we put our faith in Hashem, we'll have the privilege and the honor of seeing the final winning of this battle that Hashem already set way, way before. So we don't know the reasons for the battle, but we do know we're going to win because we have a promise from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov all the way through the prophets till the Acharit Yomim, to the end of days, that we are going to survive as a people. We know that Hashem is going to Mekabet, Mi'arba Kamfat Haaretz, the 4 corners of all the Jewish people to Eretz Yisrael, which we're seeing right now. We're going to see a Teshuvah movement. Says Malachi the prophet, the last prophecy of the last prophet is we're going to see, and we're seeing it right now in Eretz Yisrael. Here in America, hasn't taken off enough traction. That's another discussion for another day of why we over here, unfortunately, in the United States, have not been swept up fully in this Teshuvah movement that is taking place in Eretz Yisrael. As I myself saw with my own eyes, bringing secular soldiers, we brought them tzitzit, right? And they ask for brachot, and they say brachot, which normally they don't do, while in the midst of battle. It hasn't reached these shores as of yet. I don't know, but Hashem, we know, has a plan. And that plan is already in action. The other nations, Hashem gives them makkah, and then possibly finds a refuah. That's what the Gemara tells us. But for the Jewish people, Hashem is always magdim the refuah to the makkah. That is the zchut of being a Jew. So it's challenging with battles and hatred, anti-Semitism, but Hashem is Haya Hoveh Yiyeh. He knows what's going on, and He's going to bring us to salvation based upon seeds that He already planted. Just like Yosef planted seeds in Mitzrayim, in Goshen, before the Jewish people even turned up on the scene. His brothers didn't even know that Yosef was alive in Mitzrayim. And yet Hashem was sowing the seeds of Geula, of redemption. So too, my dear friends, Hashem is sowing the seeds right now for our ultimate redemption of Mashiach. And then we'll be able to look back, just like we can look back at the coat of Yosef and see inside it the hints to the future events. So too, we are to look back at all these events and say, now I get it. Now I see why this person had to be over there, and this battle took place at that place, and where that person had to suffer in that family. It all makes sense. It's going to be one final tikkun. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bring the Geula. Shlema, Bekarov, Bimhira, Yamenu. Amen. Have a great day. Azav Yamat.